WEFM reminds and encourages the general public and users of the Kittles Beach to keep it clean at all times. Dispose of all garbage properly. It is illegal to remove the sand from the beach. Let us keep the Kittles Beach and other beaches across St. Vincent and the Grenadines clean so that you and I can enjoy it and marine life can survive. This is a message from WEFM 99.9, the clean, fresh sound.
WEFM, the clean, fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
All right, down the time is Vincent and the Grenadines, 15 minutes on to the hour of 8 o'clock. We're going to head on over to Lyf Compton with his commentary for this morning. Lyf, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maka. Good morning, Roleza.
Good morning, Lyf.
How are you all this morning?
We
Roleza,
good,
your song so dead. Morning, Lyf. Why do you?
Morning, Lyf.
Right. That song fake, but a little better. Last week there was a article in One News SVG about the sharing of nudes, people sharing nudes, and the negative effects of sharing nudes, and the police warning people not to share nudes, right? And I was wondering what it was about, because over the last few months in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we actually saw the courts, the law courts in St. Vincent dealing with the sharing of nudes and the exposing of personal videos sent between one-time lovers. I saw that being dealt with very seriously in the courts, and it seems to have been very effective in stamping out that culture of the disgruntled lover sharing personal photos or whatever. It seems to have stamped it out, right? And it's something I always say, boy, that was a good thing.
Revenge porn.
Yeah, revenge porn, yeah. It seems to have stamped it out in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But we haven't seen that being a problem for quite some months now. But when I read the One News article, I was wondering what he was talking about. So I eventually learned 2 days ago what the article seemed to be about. So this happened in one of the nation's top secondary schools, where a female student created a Instagram profile and catfished another student pretending to be a male. And she basically tricked one of her other friends into thinking that she was a male, and as the conversation went on, news was shared in the chat or whatever, and the nudes end up being exposed to the to several other people in the school or whatever, and it created quite a bit of trauma and backlash, and people were suspended and parents got involved. And so then it comes down back now to the subject of what can be done, because now we move away from the realm of adults doing it to children doing it now. And this is the first time in a very long time this has been done. So what could be done now? Are the laws in place to really deal with an underage child that did something like this? You know what I mean? Because these things create quite a lot of trauma, right? And we are talking about very young students, right? Very, very young students. And it's kind of troubling, because we see bigger countries. Well, we see basically every country have laws to deal with certain things that are done by minors. Like, for instance, we see a specific laws to deal with minors who do violent crimes in relation to like murders or whatever. We see how they have things in place to deal with that, right? But can a minor be charged under the same laws that the adults are being charged in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? How does a parent or a child get justice for something when like when something like this is done to the child, right? How if you understand what I'm trying to say, because it was a very
wouldn't it fall under maybe cyberbullying all the same? Can't
you see, I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
I
I'm thinking it might fall under cyberbullying. And remember, there is a criminal age. There is an age where you can be held criminally responsible for particular actions. I can't remember what the age is. I'm not sure if it's 12.
we
I'm trying
talking
to.
about 11. We talking about 11-year-olds.
Also, it's under 12.
Yeah. So that is what I was saying. You know, how is the situation that way? Because the trauma of having something done to you like that at a very young age is going to follow you for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
Creates a certain sort of trauma that, as we see in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is not really being dealt with, right? So I don't know if the police was called in this situation or whatever. I don't think so, but it is kind of troubling to me that we managed to basically kind of stamp out the revenge kind of power mentality in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because we haven't been seeing it or we haven't been hearing it for a very long time, as I said. But now this emerge with underage kids, it's kind of she's just died. I don't know if y'all could hear me well still.
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was what I was really thinking about. You know what I mean? I like to encourage parents to always check your children's cell phone, because we see a lot of, well, a cell phone has been around so much now that it's basically from the time a child can hold something in the hands, the parents give them a cell phone. Where there's a little baby to watch, what is a little baby to watch cartoons, and so children, these things become attached to a child's hand from a very young age, and they become very, very adept at using them. And it seems like if is the new norm.
I suppose for me, it's what would fly up in a child's head to not to do something like that or to want to do something like that. I mean, I know that everybody is filled with some kind of vice, right? But I mean, to have that kind of vice at that age is troubling.
It's called catfishing, right? They give it the term catfishing, and I saw it at shows where there are reality shows where they have this being prominent and showing people to catfish people and whatever, and it just from these kids always having these cell phones, they're exposed to all these type of shows and all this content over the internet that we don't really in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Remember, we were speaking last week about putting parental controls and devices and what's not, and that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So these children are exposed to all sorts of things. And I know situations where like parents will take cell phones from children, delete various apps, and then from the time the child get back the cell phone, the child just go back and just download back the same app. Probably even delete it after they finish using it, so the parents could see, well, okay. So they could fool the parents into thinking that we haven't been using the app. You know what I mean? So these children are so,
But then, okay, so since we're on this topic, what do you think of Australia's ban on children being on social media? They've placed a ban on children being on social media. There has been a little bit of a backlash, or a kick up by some person saying that it's sort of limiting children's freedom. It kind of keeps them out of the loop in a sense. They didn't use those words, but keeps them out of the loop. Then what do you think? Do you think that maybe that this is a ban that should be accepted by other countries as a way of protecting children, so that we don't have incidents such as these?
Definitely. I think that's a good idea. Because children are not supposed to be exposed to certain things, right? Before a certain age. And social media is basically running lawless with exposing children to everything with us not really having parental controls and devices. I think that's a good idea, actually. It will allow children, they say let children be children. Social media is not allowing children to be children these days. Children are no longer outside regularly going to the beach, running away to go to the beach, climbing trees, playing football, soccer, run dodge, whatever in the road because of these devices. These devices have basically taken over the lives of many, many, many children. You know what I mean? I was reading an article back in a couple of years ago that said that the introduction of video games into American culture actually saved a lot of teenagers, because what will happen now is when video games became popular, you will find a lot of the youth, the male, instead of being out on the street corner with the bigger adults, the bigger people who are selling drugs and getting involved in gang violence and what's not, they were inside playing video games. They became stuck inside the house during the entire summer playing video games. So the introduction of video games actually saved a lot of people, saved a lot of lives, and changed a
But
lot of
then,
lives.
but then I guess it depends on the type of video game, because we also hear the same arguments about like those shooting video games.
Right.
The opposite side of the discussion to this.
So what happened is that over time it evolved now. It evolved into something negative. You know, because the article was kind of trying to insinuate that that was the purpose of making these games, to occupy kids and keep them inside and away from certain set of culture. So over time we see it as everything has evolved into something different, where the games became extremely graphic, extremely violent, and it just changed the whole dynamic of that. You know what I mean? But as I said, like Australia, as you mentioned with Australia, I think that's actually a good idea. I don't know how something like that could be implemented in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I don't think it could be, but we have to come back to the whole parents being like, you know, aware of the children's devices, searching them every afternoon when they come home and what's not, because this situation involved a lot of young people who can't tell their parents, don't search my phone. Maybe if you reach 18 and think your mommy and your daddy can't come search your phone because you go kick up. You know what I mean? But well, on that certain age, I think a parent has a right to go through a child's phone. You know what I mean? And that is something that I think, I don't know how many people actually do it. I know I have a few friends that do it to their children, but they still end up in situations where these kids still ending up in some chat group with some strong sexual content in it or whatever. And even the exchange of communication between the same age group is highly sexual at times, highly sexual. So it's a big problem. I don't know how it's going to be solved, but you know, Australia is on to something. Now, in saying that, right, I would like to commend you and Maka and the program and the station itself and the kind of programs and the type of programs that they host, right? It's always been very responsible. And this might rub some people around, right? But there are countries in the world that have restrictions on what is said on air and what is written in the media, whatever. And we like to call them communist countries. But I think some of these countries in the Caribbean, let me do say in the Caribbean, I think some of these radio stations and services and the Grenadines need to be censored and put off air. To be honest, some of the programs, the most popular radio programs seem to be wanting to just drive listenership and drive popularity by just saying the most outrageous things without fear of retribution or without care for the kind of information that they're putting out into the society. And I was told one time by one of these persons that, we don't have no social responsibility or responsibility towards our profits. We don't have no social responsibility. We don't care about that. And I was also told by one of them that, listen, so many things I say I don't even believe. I just say it for ratings. You know what I mean? And this, because I was listening to something this morning and it kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, right? In relation to like, sometimes people, listen, it's just that a lot of wrong information, misinformation, you know, a lot of lies, and just making up things to get people to listen, to get ratings. So I must commend you guys. You guys have sensible programs, informative programs, and the opinions of people are not really so outlandish as to create issues with other people in society. Is just sober reasoning. So I must comment on that, right? Because it's a serious thing. People who have a listenership need to understand that they have a I can't even find the word. They have a responsibility to provide sober reasoning, facts. You could state an opinion, but why prolong someone or why try to make a situation more than it is to just so you could listen, more people could listen to you, just so you could create controversy, just so you could sell ads. You know, you have a responsibility, and a lot of people don't really take this responsibility serious, right? And it's kind of like annoying. I saw, and sometimes when the table turn, right, it turns unexpectedly, and then it hit you back in your face, and then you cry, oh, victimization and people threatening you. I saw a post on social media yesterday where somebody said, somebody was basically accusing online publications of being biased towards a certain stance. And when I read it, I said, well, this post should have never write this. Because when other people was accusing the stance that when other people were supporting, when other online publications were supporting the stance of this sort of people, they weren't saying, oh, they biased, they supporting my stance. No, they deem other publications to be supporting something else, and they say, oh, these publications need to be shut down because they're doing this and they're doing that. When it's really guilty on both sides of the fence. You know what I mean? And it all comes back down to your responsibility now. I don't think as a journalist or as an online publication or whatever who wants to be credible that they should be writing things that are not facts. I think if you say your news, you're dealing with news or whatever, you write things that are factual. You know what I mean? Not don't put your opinion in it. Give both sides of a story, don't just give one side of a story. So somebody said, somebody do something, okay, report what a person said, but also go to the person who's being accused and sort it out. Don't put the two ideas out there and let people understand the real situation. Not be biased about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this up because that is actually a topic that we're going to talk about in the next segment, in terms of where people get the information, etc. from. But
yeah, because okay, I see people online saying oh, the opposition leader shouldn't be talking anymore. Is the opposition leader. You know? Argue and say, oh, whatever. But the opposition leader is the opposition leader. They say the opposition leader. They claim that the opposition leader get more coverage than the prime minister, which I don't understand where that comes from.
Because he's constantly having press conferences. Maybe that's
exactly. He's constantly having press conferences. But to be fair, right now, the government is busy preparing the budget. So I don't think it's a situation where the prime minister could be out every minute having a press conference. The opposition leader has a little more free time on his hand.
And to make another point there, what it is that we're also seeing is that maybe it's a little bit of a shift in that the ministers with responsibility for certain portfolios are the ones who we are seeing in the news more now, right? We're not necessarily hearing the prime ministers and Godwin Friday speaking on maybe at the opening of the new Kittel school, maybe at the launch of Education Week or whatever it is. I can't remember the actual thing that was held last week. But, or even as you and I had a discussion last week with that issue with Venezuela, when I mentioned that Fitz Bramble was the one with the portfolio and he spoke, and you are of the opinion that maybe we should have heard from the prime minister. You and I had difference of opinion on that, right? Yeah. But maybe it's because we're hearing now more of those ministers with those portfolios speaking on the matters as opposed to the prime minister speaking on those matters.
You see, the thing is with that, right? Yes, you're right. But the thing is with that, right? The former prime minister, I don't think the former prime minister ever told any ministers that you can't have a press conference. It was just that where were they? Where were some of them?
But you know this for sure, like you could say this with your chest that he did not want for them to have it. Which prime minister going to tell? Which prime minister going to tell the minister? Which leader going to tell the minister they can't have a press conference? I think that
I think the ministers just weren't having press conferences.
Okay, we're going to have a different opinion on this because
some of them
it's just weird to me. But yeah,
some former ministers, you would call them and they would answer the phone and they would talk to you. Some of them would never answer the phone, right? Certain ministries you would call, and although all the ministries supposed to have communication experts, you would catch you to get information, right? And what was weird is that a journalist could pick up his phone and call the former prime minister and he answer, or you return the call and get the information from him, and some of the ministers were not accessible. Now, it's a situation now where if all certain ministers you call now, you can't get, they won't answer the phone and they won't return your call. It's the same thing. I don't know if there's any journalist that could directly call Dr. Friday and get an interview from him and get him to answer his phone. I don't know. I've never tried, to be honest. Right? But I know in the past you could call the opposition. You could get the opposite. You could get the then prime minister, now opposition leader, quicker than they get any of the other ministers.
All right, I've heard that. So I could accept that. I could accept that, right?
I agree with you with that 100%.
Yeah.
I could accept that point. I've heard it before, right?
Okay. Former Minister Stevenson, Frederick Stevenson, he would answer his phone and talk to you, right? Former Minister Camilo Gonçalves, sometimes when you send him a WhatsApp message, he would respond to the WhatsApp message quite promptly. But
what about Suboto Caesar?
Suboto would answer sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. Curtis King, he would answer. He would answer also. Jimmy Prince, he would answer sometimes. But some of the other ministers, them, you wouldn't be able to really get them like that, right? The quickest person to answer the phone was always the former prime minister. And the information was always forthcoming from that person. And I'm not sure why is it that a lot of the ministries, a lot of the ministers were not having press conferences. We see, as you said, like a lot of the ministers out, and API, the API everybody beating up on is the one that bringing the messages from these ministers. This API everybody beating up on, right? Let me just put that out there. If you go to the API's page, you can see exactly what is going on. I also saw the Prime Minister office now introduce something they call the Friday report, where they're putting out information of the week's activities every Friday. You know what I mean?
And that's commendable. I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It shows they're taking initiative. But at the end of the day, everything that has happened or is happening is always on API's page.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can, Friday report is good. And then if you want a little background or if you want to go a little bit in depth, you could go over to API page. The same API everybody beating up on. And it's the same API that's going out with the ministers and putting the information out there. You know what I mean? So I had to put that in, right?
I know, you had to say it like 3 times.
Yeah. But so anyway, we touch on like some different areas today.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think like when I see these things with these children and these cell phones and like the sexual content of some of these conversations and things at the younger age, is kind of like really troubling, right? Because it just shows that the kind of what we like to say we have a rape culture in savings, it kind of shows that it's continuing now. And if sexually explicit content is being normalized in these chat groups with these such a younger children, like the problem is just getting worse, right? It's how do we deal with it? Do we now ban? There are certain schools in the United States where students are not allowed to take the cell phones into class, into the school without it being turned off, And people might say, "Oh, this is a bad thing. It's technological error, whatever."
But if a parent needs to reach a child urgently, yeah.
Yeah, but if you need to reach,
even here, you have that conversation. Even here.
Yeah, but I think like the things that has been going on now, I think that is something we should explore. They don't have the cell phone in school.
Yeah, but Lyf, I suppose given that we have gotten older, and sometimes when we have conversations like these, we almost make it seem as if it's something that is brand new, right? It's not necessarily that it's brand new. It's just taken a different format right? Because back in the day, there was sexually explicit conversations happening. Now, mind you, it was happening amongst certain individuals, not necessarily directly hitting you in your face like that. Persons used to have to wait until maybe like after 12 when certain cable stations were showing certain things, you know. You stay up, you're waiting your parents can't sleep. Mommy, I was not guilty of this, I was not guilty of this. I did not cable until I started to walk. But you know, persons will come to school and tell you about these conversations. So it's not so much a case of it being brand new, but the method of it has evolved over time.
You know something. Now that you mentioned that, right? The people, this I see. Sometimes I might say things that might rub people the wrong way, right? But let me tell you something. Most of the people in my time, right, that would come to school in our primary school days and talk about them things, right? 90% of the time, it was people with bad parental guidance back then. Because I couldn't go turn on no TV. Them time, I going to get catch. You know what I mean?
And I would have to admit, there was, I mean, we had sex ed in school, right? As in through formal schooling, you had sex ed. But I will tell you, sex ed is what I learned from some girls in a farm that I was in. Listen, it wasn't directly my group of friends, but they were telling you explicitly what was happening because they were involved in it at that point in time. So while students at children might be getting on the devices back then, and this is why I try not to be so hard on modern, on the generation of today, because our generation was kind of the same way. It's just that it's different now.
Okay. I wouldn't say we were the same way though, because like when break time, Catholic school break time, we running up and down. These days they trying on the phone. Lunchtime, we running up and down. We have no time for the on the phone and talking about no sexual content or whatever. We run up and down. We used to get licks. We used to get licks.
I would tell you something. I can't say something. I would tell you. Talk about primary school. I would tell you something about We
used to get licks. We used to get licks for coming in. We used to get licks for coming in sweaty. We used to get licks for coming in with we gonna slide down in the river. We foot wet. We shoes wet up. We school uniform wet up. We outside playing football, cricket. You know, but these days everybody on the cell phone. Nobody, we hardly see students these days. Doing these things during the lunch break, and they break.
I'll be honest, when I see a child coming home with their skin dirty, as in their clothes dirty, I just be like, that child had a good day at school. I love to see that.
These days, everybody coming home clean.
Right.
I pray at my say, you can wear back that shot tomorrow. Back in our days, we've been getting in trouble for coming home dirty. We shoes kick out. When last I was asking somebody the other day, when last I had child stumpy toe.
Yeah.
You don't stop the toe anymore because I guess it's a change, but whatever. It's how do we monitor the change? How do we deal with the change? How do we stay cheering along the right path? How do we explain to them that certain things are not, everything is not for social media, everything is not to share in a group, I come back down. What does an 11-year-old child have with sending news?
Yeah.
Like somebody say if in back in your days and you have cell phone, you will do the same.
Well, that's what we say. we would have done the same. So we're just saying it's evolving now.
Yeah.
But how do we control it? Probably we would have done the same. Yeah. Because I have a friend that said, boy, listen, like when we reach college and thing, when we were in college and thing, late secondary school, we lucky they had no cell phones.
And that is it, because a lot of the stuff that some people were doing weren't recorded.
Exactly.
A lot
of the stuff weren't recorded. But I just think that we were allowed to grow up.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I do get that. Yeah.
But these children these days are not being allowed to grow up and be children. Even some of the ways see some of the parents dress them. Like why does that
separate topic tomorrow. Bring that up tomorrow. Bring that up tomorrow, give me please. Yeah, because we're going to start. All right. Yeah. So
okay, all right. Yeah, all
right. So, you too. Thanks for the commentary today, Lyf. All right. All righty. So it is quickly approaching 8:15 and the time here in SVG It is no, I just said the time. All right, let's go again. Time here in SVG, it is 8:15 and our time check came through the compliments of New Haven Funeral Home. We'll be back with more activated mornings here on WEFM.
Death is a fact of life. Even though death is a fact of life,